There is a question that every civilization eventually asks. Are we alone? For thousands of years, humanity looked toward the stars, believing the answer would arrive as a message. A radio signal, a passing spacecraft, a strange language waiting to be translated. We were wrong. First contact was never going to begin with words. It was going to begin with a mistake. A mistake so small that no one noticed it at first. Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that the world is exactly the same as it was yesterday. Your family is still there. Your friends still laugh. Cars still fill the streets. Children still go to school. Everything feels normal. And yet, without anyone realizing it, history has already taken its first step toward extinction. Not because of war, not because of disease, not because of an invading alien fleet, but because somewhere beyond every star humanity has ever seen, another civilization made a decision. A decision born not from hatred, but from survival. They were dying. Their oceans were disappearing. Their atmosphere was collapsing. Entire cities had already been swallowed by a disaster no scientist could stop. For generations, they searched the universe for another home. Not to conquer, simply to survive. Then one day, they found us. Except they didn't know who we were. They only knew that somewhere in the darkness, another world existed. A world whose minds resonated with theirs. They believed they had found hope. They had no idea they had also awakened something far older than either civilization. Because neither world was ever truly alone. Between them, something was waiting. Something that had watched civilizations rise. Watched civilizations disappear. Something that remembered histories no living being could remember. When the first connection was attempted, it didn't create a bridge. It created a wound. A wound in reality itself. Years later, people would give those wounds a simpler name. Dungeons. Inside them were forgotten cities. Lost wars. Dead civilizations. Impossible creatures. And memories that belonged to worlds no one had ever heard of. But that comes later. Because every catastrophe begins the same way. With ordinary people living ordinary lives. A university student worried about missing class. A little girl trying to pass her examinations. A scientist refusing to ignore one impossible line of data. An old fisherman who could feel that the sea was somehow listening. None of them knew each other. None of them believed they would change history. None of them were chosen. And that is what makes this story different. This is not the story of a hero destined to save the world. It is the story of two civilizations slowly discovering that they have already become part of the same history. A history neither of them remembers. A history someone tried very hard to erase. The greatest lie ever told was that the world we see is the only one that exists. The second greatest lie was calling it a virtual world. Because somewhere beyond the edge of human understanding, someone has been waiting for us to log in. And when we finally do, neither world will ever be the same again. This is the beginning of Project Resonance. And this is the story of how two worlds accidentally started the longest war in the history of the universe. The false virtual world. The city had forgotten how to panic. There had been a time when the disappearance of a single building was enough to bring traffic to a halt. Older citizens still spoke of those days in lowered voices. People flooded the streets, searching the empty sky for answers that never came. Emergency sirens screamed through the night. News channels broadcast without interruption. Scientists promised explanations. Politicians promised solutions. That had been years ago. Now, when reality erased another part of the capital, commuters simply adjusted their routes. The absence became another inconvenience. Just another interruption in the rhythm of everyday life. Professor Saris Nall stood alone on the observation terrace of Horizon Spire, watching the western skyline. Morning sunlight poured across the city like liquid gold. It shimmered over crystalline towers that stretched toward the clouds. Suspended transit lines arched gracefully between districts as thousands of passengers drifted silently through the air. Gardens bloomed atop rooftops hundreds of meters above the streets, their colors reflecting in rivers of light that flowed between buildings with quiet certainty. It was still the most beautiful city she had ever seen. Perhaps that was why watching it die hurt so much. Her wrist terminal vibrated softly. She glanced down. Municipal Continuity Report. District 47. Status lost. No further details followed. There never were. She dismissed the notification with a movement of her thumb and looked back toward the horizon. The city's silhouette ended abruptly against an impossible emptiness. There should have been towers there. A botanical conservatory. 2 universities. Nearly 500,000 people. Instead, there was only clear blue sky. The world had not collapsed. It had simply forgotten. Behind her, the terrace doors slid open with a whisper. "I thought I'd find you here." The voice carried the warmth of old familiarity. Professor Elian Veros crossed the terrace with slow, measured steps, leaning lightly on a polished walking cane more from habit than necessity. Age had silvered his hair. Time had softened the sharpness of his face, but his eyes remained remarkably clear, eyes that had spent a lifetime studying civilizations long after they had vanished. Saris offered him a faint smile. "You should be resting." "So should you." He stopped beside her at the railing. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The city breathed quietly below them. Above, the sky remained painfully beautiful. Finally, Veros broke the silence. "Which district?" 47. His expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "I lectured there once." "I remember." "So do I." Another silence settled between them. This one carried grief. Not fresh grief. The kind polished smooth by repetition. Veros rested both hands on the head of his cane. "Do you know what frightens me most?" Saris already knew the answer. "We've stopped mourning." He nodded slowly. When the first districts vanished, every loss felt like the end of the world. He looked toward the impossible emptiness beyond the skyline. Now, the world ends. One district at a time. Neither of them noticed the maintenance drone hovering silently nearby. It paused for exactly 3 seconds. Then it continued its patrol as if nothing had happened. Years later, investigators would discover that no recording existed for those missing 3 seconds. No one would consider them important. A ripple disturbed the sky. It was so subtle that anyone looking away would have missed it entirely. The blue above the city bent inward for the briefest heartbeat, like the surface of a still lake touched by an invisible fingertip. Every pedestrian below stopped. Not because someone warned them, because instinct had replaced surprise. People looked up. Then they counted. 1, 2, 3. The ripple faded. Nothing happened. Conversations resumed. Traffic flowed once more. Children continued chasing floating kites through the rooftop parks as though nothing had interrupted their morning. Veros let out a slow breath. "Closer." Saris nodded. "Much closer." Neither of them needed to explain what that meant. Every month the distortions lasted a little longer. Every month the disappearances spread a little farther. Every month reality became just a little less reliable. The official reports called them continuity anomalies. Ordinary people had given them another name, the forgetting, and everyone feared the day the world might forget them too. The observation terrace chimed softly. A beam of pale light rose from the floor, weaving itself into a familiar symbol. 3 concentric circles, the emblem of the Preservation Council. A priority summons. Veros sighed. "I was hoping they'd wait until tomorrow. They've run out of tomorrows." He looked at her. For the first time that morning, Saris saw genuine fear in the old historian's eyes. Not fear of death. Fear of the decision waiting below. Together, they stepped into the lift. As the transparent doors closed around them, Saris glanced one last time toward the western horizon. For just an instant, she thought she saw movement within the emptiness. Not debris, not light. A silhouette, standing where no ground remained, watching the city. Before she could look again, the lift began to descend. Later, when she mentioned what she had seen, the surveillance system reported that nothing had been there. The system was telling the truth, because nothing had been recorded. Yet long after she entered the council chamber, Professor Saris Null could not shake the certainty that, for the briefest moment, something had been watching the last great city of chaos. And somewhere beyond the reach of its dying sky, something had begun to listen. The council chamber lay nearly a kilometer beneath Horizon Spire. The descent took less than a minute. Saris spent every second watching the city disappear behind layers of reinforced crystal and black alloy. The higher districts gave way to residential sectors, then industrial arteries, and finally the deep infrastructure that kept the capital alive. Streams of white energy flowed through conduits larger than rivers. Massive support columns vanished into the darkness below, their surfaces crawling with maintenance drones no bigger than insects. Even here, the city was beautiful. Even here, it was dying. The lift came to a silent stop. When the doors parted, neither Saris nor Veros stepped forward immediately. Waiting outside were two officers of the Preservation Guard. Their uniforms were immaculate. No weapons were visible, though everyone knew they carried them. One inclined his head respectfully. The Chancellor is waiting. Veros allowed himself a faint smile. He usually is. The council chamber had been carved from a single piece of obsidian-colored stone. There were no banners, no statues, no symbols celebrating past victories. Only a circular room with 12 seats arranged around an empty floor. The emptiness was intentional. History had taught them that governments often became prisoners of their own monuments. The council preferred a different reminder. Nothing, not even civilizations, lasted forever. As Saris entered, the conversations faded. General Kaler stood near the eastern wall, speaking quietly with two military advisors. His broad shoulders and scarred hands made him look more like an aging laborer than the commander of an entire planetary defense network. Across the chamber, economists, engineers, and historians studied floating projections that drifted through the air like ghosts. Nobody looked hopeful. Nobody expected miracles. The only empty seat belonged to the Chancellor. A soft pulse spread across the chamber. Every display vanished. The lights dimmed. Then Adrian Thales entered. He wore no ceremonial robes. Only a dark coat buttoned neatly to the neck. The kind worn by civil servants, not rulers. Saris had always admired that. Power did not need decoration. It needed restraint. The Chancellor acknowledged each member of the council with a slight nod before taking his seat. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he studied the faces around him. Some looked exhausted. Others looked frightened. A few looked angry. Every one of them carried the weight of a civilization. Finally, he broke the silence. District 47. No one answered. There was nothing left to say. I visited it 3 weeks ago. His voice remained calm. There was a school. Saris looked up. I met a little girl who asked me whether the stars had always been invisible. Silence settled over the chamber. I realized. He lowered his eyes toward the dark floor. She wasn't asking a scientific question. When he looked up again, his voice had become quieter. She believed history began with a broken sky. No one interrupted. That, he paused, is how civilizations disappear. Not when cities fall. When children forget they were ever whole. The words remained suspended in the chamber long after he finished speaking. Then the planetary intelligence awakened. A sphere of pale light rose silently from the center of the room. Its surface shimmered like liquid glass. Emergency Session 9441. Confirmed. The voice carried neither warmth nor cold. It simply existed. The continuity index has been recalculated. A three-dimensional model of the planet appeared above the chamber. Even though everyone present had seen similar projections countless times, several members still inhaled sharply. The fractures had spread. They resembled cracks in ancient porcelain, branching across continents and oceans alike. Some glowed with a faint light. Others were almost invisible. Every one of them was growing. The planetary intelligence highlighted a single region. The capital. Projected continuity. 71.3%. Projected continuity after 1 year. 58.1%. 31.4%. After 16 years. The numbers disappeared. In their place, a single word appeared. Non-viable. Silence. General Kaler was the first to stand. So, his voice echoed through the chamber. The simulations were optimistic. No, the planetary intelligence answered without hesitation. They were accurate. Kaler frowned. What changed? For the first time, the sphere hesitated. Then it spoke. Reality. A brief pause. Accelerated. The words settled over the council like ash. Reality accelerated. Not the planet. Not the fractures. Reality itself. Saris felt a chill creep along her spine. Scientific language was precise by necessity. The planetary intelligence did not choose its words carelessly. If it had said reality, then it meant reality. Veros leaned forward. Can you define accelerated? The sphere flickered softly. I cannot. You cannot. The old historian repeated the words almost to himself. Or you do not understand. A longer silence followed. Then, for the first time in recorded history, the planetary intelligence admitted something unprecedented. I do not possess sufficient knowledge. No machine built by chaos had ever given that answer. The room fell completely still. Saris lowered her eyes to the data streaming across her tablet. Buried beneath millions of calculations was a tiny anomaly. One line. One impossible line. It hadn't been there when she entered the chamber. It had simply appeared. She enlarged it. The system refused. She tried again. The text blurred until only a single phrase remained readable. External pattern recognized. Her heartbeat slowed. She glanced toward the planetary intelligence. It said nothing. No one else appeared to have noticed. Quietly, she locked her tablet. For reasons she couldn't explain, she decided not to mention it. Not yet. Far above the council chamber, another ordinary morning continued across the capital. People hurried to work. Children laughed on their way to school. Cafes opened their doors. Musicians filled public squares with music. The city lived exactly as it had the day before. None of them knew that deep beneath their feet, the wisest minds of chaos had just discovered something more terrifying than extinction. The universe contained knowledge they had never imagined, and it had just begun looking back. No one spoke for several moments. The admission lingered in the chamber like smoke. I do not possess sufficient knowledge. It was more than an answer. It was the collapse of certainty. For more than 3 centuries, the planetary intelligence had been the final authority on every scientific question. It had guided cities through famine, predicted seismic fractures before they formed, and designed the resonance networks that kept civilization alive. Children learned mathematics from it. Physicians trusted it with impossible surgeries. Entire governments deferred to its calculations. Now, it had confessed ignorance. The silence that followed carried more weight than any alarm. Chancellor Adrian Thales slowly rose from his seat. Professor Null. Saris looked up. The synchronization project. She understood immediately. It is ready for human trials. A murmur spread through the circular chamber. General Kaler frowned. Ready? Saris hesitated. No. The chamber grew quiet once more. She drew a slow breath. It is functional. There is a difference. The Chancellor folded his hands behind his back. Explain. Saris touched the surface of her tablet. The projection of the fractured planet dissolved. In its place appeared an immense circular structure suspended inside a vast underground chamber. The resonance ring. Even as a projection, it commanded the room. It was breathtaking in its simplicity. A perfect circle. No visible joints. No engines. No supports. No identifiable material. Its surface flowed with millions of microscopic inscriptions that shimmered like moonlight across still water. The council watched in silence. Yet every visit left them with the same unsettling feeling. The ring did not look manufactured. It looked discovered. Saris enlarged the projection. This is the current state of the synchronization interface. Vero spoke quietly. We still call it an interface. She met his eyes for only a moment. Neither of them smiled, because both of them knew he was right. They had stopped understanding the machine weeks ago. Our original objective, Saris continued, was straightforward. Another projection appeared. We believed consciousness could be translated into resonance patterns. Streams of light emerged from a human silhouette and flowed toward the ring. If those patterns could be stabilized, the light crossed the circle. They could be reconstructed elsewhere. General Kaler nodded. A bridge. Yes, a bridge. She dismissed the model. That is what we intended to build. A dense web of equations replaced it. Most members of the council could no longer read them. Saris could. Unfortunately, she highlighted one section near the center. This equation did not exist when construction began. The Chancellor looked at her, meaning it appeared. One of the younger counselors laughed nervously. Equations don't simply appear. No, Saris answered quietly. They don't. She enlarged another section. This part rewrote itself 43 days ago. Another section illuminated. This one, 12 days later. Then another. And this sequence completed itself yesterday. Silence settled over the chamber once again. General Kaler folded his arms. Someone altered the software. There is no software. The hardware, then. There is no hardware. He stared at her. She held his gaze without flinching. The ring has no processors, no memory banks, no computation lattice. It should not be capable of changing. She let the words settle over the room. It changes anyway. Professor Veros slowly rose to his feet. When archaeologists excavate ancient ruins, every eye in the chamber turned toward him. They occasionally discover tools whose creators have long been forgotten. He looked at the projection of the ring. The tool remains. The knowledge dies. He let the words linger before speaking again. I am beginning to wonder. His eyes rested on the perfect circle suspended above the chamber. Whether we have mistaken an artifact for an invention. No one answered, because everyone in the room had entertained the same thought. No one had dared to speak it aloud. Until now, the planetary intelligence interrupted. Correction. Every face turned toward the sphere. The resonance ring has never been classified as an invention. Saris frowned. What? The sphere projected a stream of archived records into the air. Construction reports, scientific logs, engineering approvals, the original authorization, project synchronization. Saris searched for the line she expected to see. Inventor, Professor Saris Null. It wasn't there. Instead, the record displayed a different classification. Recovered object. The color drained from her face. No. She barely whispered the word. That's impossible. I designed it. She remembered the sleepless nights, the endless calculations, the prototypes, the failed experiments. She remembered every step, didn't she? She opened another archive, then another. Every record was the same. Recovered object, recovered object, recovered object. A strange pressure built behind her eyes. Memories surfaced, only to slip away before she could grasp them. For the briefest instant, she saw herself standing inside a cavern. Dust filled the air. Darkness surrounded her. A perfect circle lay buried beneath layers of ancient stone. She reached down. Her hands brushed away the soil. Then, the memory shattered. She staggered backward. Veros caught her before she fell. Saris. She looked at him. For the first time in years. The brilliant scientist looked genuinely afraid. Her voice trembled. I don't remember. Silence swept across the chamber. Not because anyone believed the archives, but because, for the first time in their lives, they had watched a memory change. Far below the laboratory, far beneath foundations no architect had ever mapped, something inside the planet awakened. It was not mechanical. It was not alive. It had no language, no thoughts, no emotions. Yet as the resonance ring slowly turned above, an answering rhythm echoed through the bedrock. Once, twice, then, silence. No instrument detected it. No scientist noticed it. But somewhere beyond the dying sky of chaos, a signal that had waited for millions of years quietly recognized its counterpart. And for the first time since the age of forgotten civilizations, the long silence between worlds had come to an end. The council chamber remained silent long after Saris lowered her hands. No one rushed to comfort her. No one questioned the planetary intelligence. Some truths were simply too large to challenge the moment they appeared. At last, Chancellor Adrian Thales broke the silence. Archive. The sphere brightened. Confirmed. Who recovered the resonance ring? A pause followed. Record unavailable. General Kaler frowned. Unavailable. Yes. Destroyed. I cannot determine. Corrupted. I cannot determine. Hidden. I cannot determine. Kaler looked toward Saris. I don't like answers that begin with I cannot determine. No one else did either. Professor Veros stepped toward the center of the chamber. His voice remained calm. Let's assume the archives are correct. Several heads turned toward him. If the ring was recovered rather than invented, he looked slowly around the chamber. Then one question becomes unavoidable. He pointed toward the projection suspended above them. Recovered. From whom? No one answered. Not because they lacked intelligence. Because every possible answer was terrifying. If another civilization had created the ring, where were they now? The Chancellor turned back toward the planetary intelligence. Expand historical search parameters. Searching. The chamber darkened as rivers of light streamed through the air. billions of records, scientific journals, construction permits, archaeological reports, military logs, university archives, private collections, one after another. They flashed past faster than any human mind could follow. Then, the search stopped. Search complete. Results. The sphere answered with a single word. One. Only one. A lone document materialized above the chamber. It was ancient, far older than the digital archive surrounding it. Scanned. Incomplete. Its edges had been burned away. Entire paragraphs were missing. Only the title had survived. Expedition Report 731. Restricted classification. Site designation. Kepri Delta. Saris frowned. I've never heard of Kepri Delta. Neither had anyone else. The Chancellor looked toward Veros. The old historian slowly shook his head. It isn't listed in any archaeological registry. General Kaler folded his arms. Read it. The planetary intelligence obeyed. Its voice became quieter, almost reverent. Day 12. We have reached the deepest chamber. The object is unlike anything recorded in our civilization. There are no tool marks, no signs of construction, no identifiable material. It appears older than the surrounding rock. The chamber remained perfectly still. The report continued. Several members insist the object is impossible. Professor Edrin believes the chamber formed around it, rather than the object being placed inside. A younger counselor laughed uneasily. That's absurd. Veros did not laugh. Neither did Saris. The planetary intelligence continued. We attempted removal. The object did not resist. Instead, the recording paused. Instead, more static. The remaining text dissolved into fragments. The archive had been damaged beyond recovery. Only the final sentence remained. If this report reaches the surface, do not activate the ring. Silence. Absolute silence. General Kaler spoke first. Who wrote that? The planetary intelligence answered. Author unavailable. An Expedition 731. A brief pause. All personnel ceased to exist. The words struck the chamber like a physical blow. One of the counselors finally found his voice. They couldn't be identified? No. They died. No. Another pause. They ceased to exist. The distinction unsettled Saris more than she cared to admit. Veros slowly closed his eyes. History. The Chancellor looked at him. What about it? The old historian spoke so quietly that everyone leaned forward to hear. We keep asking who built the ring. He opened his eyes. I think we're asking the wrong question. No one interrupted. We should be asking. His gaze settled on the ancient projection suspended above the chamber. Who erased the people who found it? At that exact moment, the temperature inside the council chamber dropped by nearly 2 degrees. Every instrument registered the change. No system could explain it. Then the planetary intelligence spoke without being addressed. Warning. Every display turned crimson. Unscheduled resonance activity. Deep beneath Horizon Spire, the resonance ring had awakened. No one had activated it. No one had touched it. Yet the recovered artifact began to rotate. Slowly, deliberately, as though it had been listening to every word spoken inside the chamber. In the laboratory below, every engineer froze. The ring emitted no light, no sound. It simply turned. One complete revolution, then another. Millions of microscopic inscriptions flowed across its surface like liquid silver. A young technician frowned. Those symbols. His supervisor looked up. What about them? They're changing. Record them. I can't. Why not? The technician swallowed. Because. He enlarged the image until the inscriptions filled the screen. They're not changing. The laboratory fell silent. There. He stared at the display in disbelief. Reading. Far beyond the dying world of chaos, across the darkness between the stars, an invisible current crossed the void. It passed suns that had burned for billions of years. It drifted through regions where no civilization had ever traveled. Distance meant nothing to it. Time meant even less. At last, it reached a quiet blue world orbiting an ordinary yellow star. The current did not strike the planet. Instead, it circled it, once, as if observing. Then, it disappeared. No telescope recorded it. No satellite detected it. On Blue Star. It was an ordinary morning. Children hurried to school. Fishermen pushed their boats into calm water. A university student overslept after studying all night. A software engineer complained about traffic. An elderly woman watered flowers on her balcony. Life continued exactly as it always had, completely unaware that somewhere in the universe, something ancient had just found them. The warning echoed through the laboratory. Unscheduled resonance activity. No one moved. Not because they lacked training, because every protocol they had ever written depended on one simple truth. The array responded only to human commands. It had never acted on its own. Until now. Professor Saris entered the laboratory at a brisk pace, the hem of her coat trailing behind her. Engineers instinctively stepped aside as she crossed the observation platform. What happened? A technician looked up from his console. We don't know. The activation sequence. Not initiated. External interference? No evidence. Power fluctuations? None. Every answer eliminated another possible explanation. The impossible was rapidly becoming the only explanation left. At the center of the chamber, the array rotated with perfect calm. Not faster, not slower, just different. Its movement no longer felt mechanical. It felt deliberate, as though it had chosen to move. Saris rejected the thought the moment it entered her mind. Machines did not choose. Artifacts did not choose. Only living things chose. She stepped closer. The inscriptions flowed endlessly across the array's surface, each symbol dissolving into the next before becoming another she had never seen. Then one symbol caught her attention. Unlike the others, it did not move. It remained fixed near the inner circumference. Simple, elegant, almost like an eye. She reached toward the nearest display. Magnify symbol. The projection obeyed. The symbol expanded until it filled the air before her. Every researcher stared. It was beautiful, not because of its shape, because every person looking at it saw something different. One engineer whispered, "It looks like a doorway." Another slowly shook his head. "No, it looks like a seed." General Kaler, who had just entered the laboratory, narrowed his eyes. "I see a shield." Sarah said nothing. To her, it looked like an iris. Watching, the instant that thought crossed her mind, the symbol blinked. Not visually, mentally. Every person in the laboratory instinctively stepped backward. The projection vanished. Half the displays shut themselves down. The remaining screens flooded with cascading lines of text. Not code, not equations. A language. Unknown. Ancient. Beautiful. Terrifying. Can anyone translate it? Silence. The symbols continued flowing across every display. Professor Veros entered moments later, breathing slightly heavier than usual from the hurried walk. He looked at one screen, then another, then another. Finally, he spoke. "I've seen this before." Every eye turned toward him. "Where?" He didn't answer immediately. His brow tightened. "I." His voice faltered. "I don't remember." The laboratory became perfectly still. Veros rarely forgot anything. His memory had become legendary among historians. Yet now, he looked genuinely distressed. "I know this language." He pressed both hands against his temples. "I know I've read it. But every time I tried to remember, the sentence dissolved into silence. Not because he stopped speaking, because the memory itself slipped away. Like water through open fingers. The planetary intelligence interrupted. Translation unavailable. A brief pause followed. Then, correction. Several engineers looked up. Partial semantic analysis complete. The scrolling symbols began to slow. One sentence emerged from the torrent. Not translated word for word. Translated by meaning. The laboratory lights dimmed. Even the voice of the planetary intelligence seemed quieter. Almost uncertain. The threshold recognizes another witness. Nothing else appeared. The remaining symbols vanished. The displays returned to normal. The array continued its slow rotation, as though nothing had happened. General Kaler was the first to recover. "What does that mean?" No one answered. Saris repeated the sentence silently to herself. "The threshold recognizes another witness. Not another civilization. Not another consciousness. A witness. Witness. To what?" Far beneath the laboratory floor. Hidden below kilometers of ancient bedrock. Something that had slept through the rise and fall of civilization stirred. It had no heartbeat, no thoughts, no dreams, only purpose. For millions of years, it had remained still, waiting, watching, listening. Now, for the first time since the stars themselves were young, it felt two worlds acknowledge one another, not through war, not through conquest, through recognition. The first lock had turned. High above, life continued. Leora sat in her classroom, absent-mindedly drawing circles in the corner of her notebook while her teacher explained the history of the preservation era. The circles overlapped. One, then another, then a third. Without realizing why, she added a small mark at the center. Her teacher paused beside her desk. "What are you drawing?" Leora looked down. She frowned. "I don't know." The teacher smiled kindly. "It looks like a door." Leora tilted her head. "No." For reasons she could not explain, she was certain. "It isn't a door." She traced the center of the symbol with her finger. "It's waiting for someone." The classroom windows rattled softly. No wind blew outside. Far beyond the city, beyond the collapsing horizon, beyond the stars themselves, an invisible answer continued its silent journey toward Blue Star. And for the first time in the history of the Resonance Network, a forgotten protocol had begun to execute. No civilization remained alive that remembered writing it. No one spoke until the last of the symbols disappeared. The laboratory felt different, not because its walls had changed, because certainty had. Professor Saris remained standing before the observation glass, watching the array complete another slow revolution. For the first time since joining Project Synchronization, she was no longer looking at a machine. She was looking at a question. Behind her, the engineers quietly returned to their stations. Fingers moved across holographic consoles with practiced precision, but the familiar rhythm of scientific work had vanished. Every few moments, someone looked back at the array, as though expecting it to move again. It didn't. It simply waited. The Chancellor entered without ceremony. No announcement preceded him. No guards followed. His footsteps alone were enough to draw every eye in the laboratory. He stopped beside Saris. "Walk with me." She nodded. Together, they left the laboratory and entered a corridor carved deep beneath Horizon Spire. Its walls were made entirely of glass. Beyond them lay the archive garden. Thousands of living plants, real soil, flowing water, the last untouched ecosystem preserved beneath the capital. The Chancellor often came here when the burden of leadership became too heavy. Nature had a way of making even impossible decisions feel smaller. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Only the quiet sound of flowing water accompanied them. At last, Adrian broke the silence. "When I was 12, Saris looked toward him. My father brought me here." He rested a hand lightly against the glass. "There used to be forests across the northern continent." His voice carried no bitterness, only memory. I asked him why anyone would preserve trees underground. A faint smile appeared, then quietly faded. He told me something I've never forgotten. The Chancellor looked through the glass toward the silent forest. When a civilization begins preserving memories, he paused. Instead of creating them, his eyes lingered among the trees. It has already begun saying goodbye. The words remained between them. Saris looked toward the forest. "They're beautiful." "They are, but they are also evidence of failure." He turned to face her. "The synchronization project." His expression revealed nothing. "Can it save us?" Saris didn't answer immediately. She had imagined this conversation many times. She had expected to answer with confidence, with equations, with probabilities. Now, confidence had abandoned her. "It can create a bridge." The Chancellor held her gaze. "That isn't what I asked." "No." She looked back toward the laboratory hidden beyond the walls. "It isn't." A long silence followed. Finally, she spoke. "I no longer know what it will create." The Chancellor accepted the answer without disappointment. In fact, he seemed relieved. "Good." Saris blinked. "Good. The people who frighten me most," he resumed walking, "are the ones who are certain they understand the future. We don't. We never have." He stopped beside a small tree whose silver leaves shimmered beneath the artificial sunlight. "My responsibility isn't choosing between certainty and uncertainty." He looked directly at her. "It is choosing Which uncertainty gives my people the greatest chance to survive? They reached the end of the garden. A single bench overlooked a quiet pond. Its surface reflected the lights above so perfectly. It looked like another sky. The chancellor sat. Cyrus remained standing. There are 184 million people on Chaos. His eyes remained fixed on the water. Every week, another city loses part of itself. Every month, another archive disappears. Every year, children are born into a world smaller than the one their parents knew. He drew a slow breath. If I refuse to act, his reflection trembled. Our civilization dies slowly. He looked up. If I approve synchronization. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Both paths led toward extinction. Footsteps echoed through the garden. General Kaler approached, carrying a sealed data slate. Without a word, he handed it to the chancellor. Adrian activated the display. His expression hardened. "What is it?" Cyrus asked. "The military simulations." He read in silence for several moments. Then he closed the slate. "The latest continuity projections." He hesitated. They were wrong. Cyrus frowned. The planetary intelligence already said reality accelerated. Yes. He looked toward the laboratory beyond the garden walls. It accelerated again. No one spoke. The silence became the answer. At last, General Kaler broke it. "If the projections are correct." His voice was quieter than usual. "We don't have 16 years." Cyrus felt her stomach tighten. "How long?" The general looked toward the chancellor. Adrian answered. 3. The word was barely louder than a whisper. 3 years. The garden suddenly felt colder. The waterfall continued to flow. Leaves swayed gently in the artificial breeze. Life continued exactly as it had a moment before. Yet everything had changed. 3 years. Not enough time to build another civilization. Barely enough time to prepare for the end of one. The chancellor rose to his feet. His decision had begun forming long before he spoke. "I want the council assembled." General Kaler nodded. "I want every objection recorded." Cyrus understood immediately. He wasn't asking for agreement. He was asking for honesty. And after that, her voice was barely audible. Adrian looked back toward the laboratory, toward the array, toward a future none of them understood. Then he spoke the sentence history would remember, though history would never remember it correctly. "Prepare the synchronization project." Far beyond the walls of Horizon Spire, the capital continued with its ordinary day. Children laughed. Artists painted. Couples argued over trivial things. Street musicians performed beneath floating gardens. A baker removed fresh bread from an oven. A young boy stopped to help an old woman carry her groceries. Life moved forward with quiet dignity. None of them knew that, beneath their feet, a decision had just been made. Not merely a scientific decision, not merely a political one. It was the decision that would one day connect two worlds. The decision that would give birth to the scars. The decision that would awaken the memory dungeons. The decision that would begin the long war between civilizations. History would later blame the chancellor for opening the gate. History would be wrong. The gate had already begun opening. He had only chosen not to close his eyes. Leora hated history lessons. Not because history was boring, because every lesson ended the same way. And that place no longer exists. She rested her chin in her hands as the classroom lights dimmed. Above the teacher's desk, a projection blossomed into life. An ancient forest stretched across the room. Massive trees reached into a sky crowded with birds whose names no one remembered. A river shimmered beneath the branches. Children ran laughing through the undergrowth. The recording was beautiful. Too beautiful. The teacher smiled. This is an authentic reconstruction of the Astor Forest Reserve, recorded 412 years ago. A boy near the back raised his hand. Where is it now? The teacher hesitated. She chose her words carefully. It no longer exists. The projection dissolved. Another silence. Another place gone. Leora looked around the classroom. No one seemed surprised. They were used to endings. After the lesson, the children spilled into the courtyard. Some chased hovering toys. Others gathered beneath flowering trees that released glowing petals whenever someone laughed. Leora wandered toward the oldest tree in the school grounds. Her grandmother insisted it had been planted before the forgetting began. Leora liked believing that. It made the tree feel brave. She sat beneath its branches and opened the sketchbook she carried everywhere. Instead of homework, she drew circles, large circles, small circles, circles within circles. She didn't know why. Her pencil simply moved. At the center of the final circle, she drew the same strange symbol that had appeared on the array. She stared at it. "What are you?" "That's pretty." Leora looked up. Her best friend, Celine, leaned over the sketchbook. "I've never seen that symbol before. I don't remember drawing it." Celine laughed. "You're holding the pencil." "I know, but..." Leora frowned. "It feels like I copied it." "From where?" She searched her memory. "Nothing. I don't know." The afternoon bell echoed across the courtyard. Students hurried toward the exits. Leora and Celine walked home together through streets filled with floating gardens and quiet conversations. Chaos City had always impressed visitors. Even now, while pieces of the world quietly disappeared, people still stopped to admire musicians performing beneath crystal bridges. Artists painted landscapes they feared would soon be gone. Cafes remained full. Bookstores still argued over philosophy. The city refused to surrender its humanity. Perhaps that was why it deserved to survive. As they crossed Harmony Square, a crowd had gathered around an elderly man sitting beside a fountain. He wore simple gray robes. No insignia, no technology, only an old wooden flute resting across his knees. He wasn't playing. He was watching the water. People occasionally dropped coins into the small bowl before him. He never asked. He never thanked them. He simply smiled. Celine tugged Leora's sleeve. "That's him." "Who?" "The storykeeper." Leora frowned. "I thought he was just a rumor." "So did I." The girls approached cautiously. The old man looked up before either of them spoke. His eyes were clear. Far too clear for someone who appeared older than the city itself. "You've been drawing again." Leora froze. "How did you know?" He nodded toward the sketchbook tucked beneath her arm. "I didn't. I guessed." His smile deepened. "May I see?" Leora hesitated, then handed him the sketchbook. He turned the pages slowly. Flowers, buildings, clouds, family portraits. Then, the circles. His smile vanished. For the first time, genuine surprise crossed his face. "Who taught you this?" "No one." "You've seen it before." "I don't think so." "You have." His voice remained gentle. "You simply don't remember where." Leora felt an unexpected chill. "It's just a drawing." "No." He closed the sketchbook carefully. "It is a memory." Celine laughed awkwardly. "You're scaring her." The old man looked toward the fountain. "I hope not." He handed the sketchbook back. Then, almost as an afterthought, he asked, "Tell me, little one." Leora waited. "When you dream, do you ever hear music?" She blinked. "Sometimes." "What kind of music?" "I don't know." She searched for words. She smiled uncertainly. "It sounds like someone remembering home." The old man closed his eyes. His hands tightened around the old wooden flute. For a long time, he said nothing. Finally, he whispered, "So it has begun." Neither girl understood what he meant. They continued home, laughing about school and homework before long. The strange conversation already fading into the ordinary rhythm of childhood. Behind them, the old man remained beside the fountain. After the square had emptied, he slowly lifted the flute to his lips. The melody he played was unlike anything heard in chaos. It carried no recognizable scale, no familiar rhythm. Yet everyone who passed by slowed for just a moment. Some smiled without knowing why. Others felt tears gathering unexpectedly. One little boy looked up at his mother. "I know this song." She squeezed his hand. "No, sweetheart. You've never heard it before." The boy frowned. "I know." He looked back toward the old musician. "That's why it's strange." That evening, surveillance drones reviewing Harmony Square flagged the performance for archival storage. Not because of the music, because every recording captured the melody. But none captured the musician. The bench was visible. The fountain. The bowl of coins. Even the flute. Only the old man himself was absent, as though the cameras had faithfully recorded everything, except the one who had been playing. The anomaly was classified as a minor sensor malfunction. No further investigation was requested. Far below Horizon Spire, the array completed another silent revolution. This time, A second symbol stopped moving. Night settled gently over chaos. Unlike the darkness remembered in ancient records, the city never truly slept. Rivers of light traced elegant paths through the avenues. Suspended gardens shimmered beneath artificial moons, and countless windows glowed high above the streets like constellations brought down from the heavens. From a distance, chaos looked immortal. Only those who lived within it knew how fragile beauty could become. Leora stood on the balcony of her family's apartment. Her grandmother joined her a few moments later, carrying 2 steaming cups of herb tea. One she handed to Leora, the other she kept warming her hands against. They watched the city together. "I met someone today," Leora said. "The old musician." Her grandmother smiled faintly. "So he's still around. You know him?" "I've seen him." "Who is he?" The old woman took a slow sip before answering. "I don't know." "You don't?" "I've never known anyone who did." Leora frowned. "He said my drawing was a memory." Her grandmother's hand stopped halfway to her cup. "What drawing?" Leora hurried inside and returned with her sketchbook. The old woman opened it. She turned the pages one by one. Flowers, buildings, the old observatory, their apartment. Then, the circles. Her fingers froze. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to fall away. She stared at the symbol without blinking. "Grandma." The old woman gently closed the book. "Where did you see this?" "I don't know. I need you to think." "I am." "No." Her grandmother whispered. "I need you to remember." Leora wanted to answer. She truly did. She closed her eyes. She searched every corner of her memory. School, home, books, dreams, nothing. Then, for the briefest instant, she heard laughter. Not her own. Children, hundreds of them, running through grass beneath a blue sky. A melody drifted across the wind. Someone called her name. Not Leora. Another name. Older. Warmer. Before she could hear it clearly, the memory dissolved. Her eyes opened. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. "I almost remembered." Her grandmother embraced her without asking another question. "It's all right." "No," Leora whispered. "It isn't. I forgot someone." Across the city, Professor Saris had not gone home. She sat alone in Laboratory 3, surrounded by projections that no longer made sense. Every model she had ever trusted now contradicted another. Every equation led to impossible conclusions. The array continued its patient rotation beyond the observation glass. Saris ignored it, or tried to. Her attention remained fixed on Expedition Report 731. She had read it 37 times. Each reading revealed something new. Not because the report changed, because she noticed different absences. She enlarged the scanned document once more. This time, instead of reading the surviving text, she studied the burned edges. A thought occurred to her. What if? She whispered to herself. These aren't burn marks. Her workstation's analytical system activated immediately. Material comparison initiated. Seconds passed. Then, no thermal damage detected. Sarah sat upright. No thermal damage? She frowned. Run structural analysis. The projection shifted. Tiny fractures spread across the edge of the page. Perfectly smooth. Perfectly uniform. Not burned. Removed. Not torn. Excised. As though reality itself had cut pieces out of history with impossible precision. Her pulse quickened. Someone hadn't destroyed the report. Someone had removed parts of it so completely that the missing sections had never existed. The implication was terrifying. What kind of technology could edit the past without touching the present? Deep beneath the laboratory, the planetary intelligence monitored millions of processes simultaneously. Power distribution, atmospheric regulation, medical emergencies, orbital defenses, population logistics. Everything proceeded normally. Then, one process appeared that had never existed before. It carried no identification number, no originating command, no administrator. Simply, observer, active. The intelligence attempted to terminate it. Access denied. It attempted to isolate it. Function unavailable. It attempted to identify its source. The answer arrived almost instantly. Source unknown. For the first time since its activation 361 years earlier, the planetary intelligence experienced something that closely resembled uncertainty. It created a secure log, one visible only to itself. Private record. Timestamp: 23 hours, 41 minutes, and 18 seconds. An unidentified observer is present within the planetary network. No hostile actions detected. No communication received. No method of removal available. Recommendation: continue observation. The log closed. No human being would ever read it. Not for a very long time. Far beyond the skies of chaos, where darkness stretched between forgotten stars, an ancient current of resonance continued its silent journey. It did not move through space. It moved through possibility, passing over lifeless worlds, ignoring civilizations that had long since extinguished themselves. Searching, measuring, comparing, until at last, it paused before a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow sun. Not because the planet was unique, because something upon it answered. Not a machine, not a government, not a civilization. A single consciousness, faint, almost impossible to detect, like the first note of a melody waiting to be remembered. The current did not force a connection. It simply waited. Back on Chaos, Leora had fallen asleep with her sketchbook open beside her bed. Moonlight spilled across the page. The strange symbol rested at its center. Sometime after midnight, without any hand touching the paper, a second line appeared. So fine it was almost invisible. Not drawn, written, as though the page itself had quietly remembered something it had forgotten. Leora slept through it. Outside her window, the city remained peaceful. For one final night, at precisely 3 minutes past midnight, every clock in Chaos stopped. Not permanently. For exactly 1 second. Factories paused. Medical monitors froze. Transit systems held their position. A pianist, halfway through a performance in the Central Conservatory, found her hands suspended above the keys before the melody continued as though nothing had happened. Most people never noticed. Those who did dismissed it as fatigue. Later, no instrument could prove the interruption had occurred. Every clock insisted it had continued counting without error. Only living memory remembered the missing second. Professor Saris was still awake. She had abandoned the laboratory for the archive wing, where the oldest physical records of Chaos were preserved beneath carefully controlled conditions. Unlike digital archives, paper had one remarkable advantage. It resisted revision, or so historians believed. Rows upon rows of shelves stretched into the darkness. Thousands of journals, navigation charts, personal letters, children's drawings, government decrees, each one a fragment of a civilization refusing to forget itself. Veros was already there. He looked unsurprised to see her. "I thought you'd come. You couldn't sleep either." He smiled wearily. "I stopped expecting sleep years ago." He placed a weathered leather-bound journal upon the reading table. "It belonged to my grandfather." Saris raised an eyebrow. "I didn't know he kept journals." He wasn't supposed to. Veros carefully opened the fragile pages. The Preservation Council once discouraged private historical records. Why? He gave a bitter smile. They believed centralized archives were safer. He gently turned another page. They underestimated memory. Between neatly written observations about harvests, weather, and family celebrations, one passage had been underlined twice. Veros silently rotated the journal towards Saris. She began reading. "Today my daughter asked why our maps keep changing. I told her the survey teams had improved their measurements. That was a lie. The mountains themselves have moved." Saris frowned. She continued. "Not physically. History moved. The old paths still exist inside my memory, yet every official map insists they never did." Another line, written much more heavily. "If you are reading this years from now, trust what you remember before you trust what has been rewritten." Saris slowly looked up. "When was this written?" Veros answered quietly. 118 years ago." Neither spoke for several moments. Finally, Saris asked, "Did your grandfather believe memories were more reliable than records?" Veros closed the journal with extraordinary care. "No, he believed both could be changed." He rested a hand upon the worn cover. "The difference is," he looked toward the endless shelves surrounding them. "People notice when memories disappear. They rarely notice when history does." A low vibration spread through the archive. Books trembled almost imperceptibly. Neither scientist moved. The vibration came again, longer this time, then stopped. Saris looked upward. The array. Veros nodded. It's calling. She almost corrected him. Machines didn't call. Then she remembered the symbols. The impossible archives. The forgotten expedition. Instead, she asked, calling whom? The old historian answered without looking away from the ceiling. I hope. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Not us. Deep beneath Horizon Spire, engineers watched in growing disbelief. The array was no longer rotating at a constant speed. It slowed, paused, then rotated again. Not randomly, rhythmically, like breathing. 1 revolution. Pause. 2 revolutions. Pause. 3. Pause. The pattern repeated. A young engineer began writing the sequence onto a notepad. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Again and again. He frowned. There has to be a mathematical relationship. His supervisor leaned over. Run a harmonic analysis. The computer processed the sequence. 5 seconds later, it returned an answer. No mathematical pattern detected. The engineer checked manually. Again. Nothing. Then an older technician quietly spoke from the back of the room. You're asking the wrong question. Everyone turned. He approached the notepad, looked at the sequence, then smiled sadly. It isn't counting. He drew 3 circles beside the numbers. Small, medium, large, then connected them. It is keeping time. At that exact moment, 300 million kilometers away, a blue planet completed another silent rotation around its star. The invisible resonance current reached the edge of its atmosphere. For the first time since leaving chaos, it hesitated, not because something blocked its path, because something answered. Not with words, not with power, with recognition. The current divided. One part remained in orbit, the other descended. Slowly, patiently, like the first snowflake before winter. On Blue Star, dawn broke over an ordinary coastal city. Street vendors prepared breakfast. Fishing boats returned with the night's catch. Students hurried toward buses with half-finished assignments tucked beneath their arms. Somewhere among millions of ordinary people, someone paused. Not because they sensed the current, because, for reasons they couldn't explain, they suddenly felt homesick. For a place they had never been. Back in chaos, Leora stirred in her sleep. She dreamed of standing before an endless sea beneath a sky filled with unfamiliar constellations. Footsteps approached behind her. She wanted to turn. She couldn't. A calm voice spoke only one sentence. When the first scar opens, a pause. Do not be the first to enter. She woke with tears on her face. The room was quiet. Morning light filtered through the curtains. She remembered nothing. Only one feeling remained. An overwhelming certainty that someone, somewhere, had just tried to save her. Morning arrived with unusual clarity. The clouds above chaos drifted in slow, silver bands, catching the light of a sun that seemed brighter than it had been in months. Across the capital, citizens welcomed the unexpected weather with cautious optimism. Children played longer before school. Markets filled earlier than usual. For a few precious hours, the city felt almost ordinary. Professor Saris did not trust ordinary mornings anymore. She arrived at Laboratory 1 before sunrise. Most of the night shift was still present. Cups of untouched coffee scattered across workstations, their owners too exhausted or too fascinated to leave. The array stood exactly where it had the day before. Silent, perfect, patient. It had not moved since midnight. That disturbed Saris more than if it had continued. She stepped onto the observation platform. Status report. Chief Engineer Darren Holt looked up from his console. No energy fluctuation. No thermal deviation. No gravitational distortion. No resonance emissions. He hesitated. There is one anomaly. Saris waited. The array is heavier. She frowned. How much heavier? We don't know. You don't know? We can measure the pressure it's placing on the foundation. He brought up a structural model of the chamber. Hairline stress patterns radiated outward beneath the array's pedestal. The foundation is experiencing an additional load. Equivalent to, Darren swallowed. If the measurements are correct. He zoomed in. Approximately 4,000 metric tons. Sarah stared at the projection. The array's dimensions haven't changed. No. The material composition? unchanged. Then where is the additional mass coming from? No one answered, because no known branch of physics had an answer. Professor Veros arrived moments later, carrying 3 ancient books tucked beneath one arm. I found something. He laid them across the nearest table. Each had been written centuries apart. Each came from a different region of chaos. Each described the same phenomenon, not in scientific language, in stories. Veros opened the oldest volume. A faded illustration showed a great circular object suspended above a mountain. Beneath it stood people with their hands raised toward the sky. The translation? Saris asked. He adjusted his glasses. It says, he read slowly, when the gate remembers its weight, the world begins remembering its past. Silence settled over the laboratory. Darren frowned. That's mythology. Perhaps. Veros closed the book. But mythology has a habit of surviving when explanations don't. An alarm sounded. Not loud. Almost polite. Every workstation displayed the same message. Passive scan complete. Compatible resonance signature located. The laboratory froze. Saris looked toward the planetary intelligence. I didn't authorize a scan. You did not. Who did? A pause. No initiating command detected. The scan had happened anyway. Another line appeared. Probability of stable synchronization, 99.9814%. The room erupted into overlapping voices. Impossible. Stable with what? Where? Can it identify the source? Saris raised one hand. Silence returned. She looked directly at the floating sphere of the planetary intelligence. Source. The answer came immediately. Unknown. General Kaler entered at that exact moment. He took one look at the displays. What happened? Saris answered without taking her eyes off the projections. I think. She paused, choosing the right words. The array found someone. No one realized how accurate that sentence truly was. Millions of kilometers away, on Blue Star, a university campus stirred to life. Students drifted between lecture halls carrying backpacks, unfinished assignments, and the quiet optimism unique to young people who believed the future belonged to them. Among them walked a young man with untidy black hair, headphones around his neck, and a notebook tucked beneath one arm. He paused beneath a jacaranda tree as purple blossoms drifted lazily through the morning air. His phone vibrated. A message from his mother. Don't forget dinner tonight. Your sister will be home. He smiled, typed a quick reply. Wouldn't miss it. Then continued toward his lecture, completely unaware that somewhere beyond every star he had ever known, an impossible machine had just found him. He was not special, not stronger than anyone else, not chosen. He simply happened to answer a question no one knew had been asked, and because of that, history had quietly taken his name. Back in chaos, the planetary intelligence spoke again. Its voice was softer than before, almost contemplative. There is an additional observation. Saris looked up. What observation? The compatible consciousness. A brief pause. Does not belong to our civilization. The words echoed through the laboratory. No one moved. No one breathed. General Kaler was the first to speak. Another civilization? Probability. The intelligence answered. 99.9998%. Professor Veros slowly removed his glasses. For the first time in decades, his hands trembled. Not from fear, from wonder. We're not alone. He whispered it so quietly that only Saris heard. Yet those 3 words carried more weight than any discovery in the history of chaos. Because if they were true, then everything their civilization believed about the universe had just changed. Far above the dying world, the invisible resonance current completed its first stable orbit around Blue Star. For a brief instant, 2 stars shone in perfect alignment across the darkness. One illuminating a civilization desperate to survive. The other unaware it had just become part of a story far older than its own. Between them, something ancient stirred. Not awake. Not yet. But no longer asleep. The council chamber was filled long before sunrise. No invitations had been sent. None were necessary. Word had spread through the highest levels of government with astonishing speed. The array had found another civilization. For the first time in recorded history, chaos was no longer alone. The chamber doors sealed. No one outside would hear what was discussed within. Chancellor Adrian Thales remained standing. He did not take his seat. The 12 members of the council watched him in silence. When he finally spoke, his voice carried neither excitement nor fear, only responsibility. We have confirmed intelligent life beyond our world. He allowed the statement to settle. No announcement will be made. Several counselors immediately looked up. One spoke. People deserve to know. They deserve certainty. We do not possess certainty. The answer was immediate. If we speak now. Adrian looked around the chamber. We replace hope with speculation. General Kaler activated a military projection. Blue Star appeared for the first time. An ordinary world. Blue oceans. Green continents. White clouds. Beautiful. Untouched. Someone quietly whispered. It survived. No one asked what he meant. Everyone understood. It had survived whatever destroyed so many others. Professor Saris stood beside the projection. Our observations remain extremely limited. She enlarged the orbital analysis. We have detected a technological civilization. Industrial. Electromagnetic communications. Orbital infrastructure. No evidence of interstellar capability. A counselor frowned. So there. She searched for the right word. Behind us. Saris answered carefully. Technologically. Perhaps. Historically. She looked toward Veros. We have no idea. Veros slowly approached the projection. His eyes remained fixed upon the blue world. We should remember something. Everyone turned toward him. When archaeologists uncover an ancient city, he gently touched the hologram. They are often tempted to judge the people who live there. He withdrew his hand. They should resist. Why? A younger counselor asked. Because every civilization is intelligent in the direction its history required. He smiled faintly. The ocean teaches different lessons than the desert. The mountain teaches different lessons than the sea. The question is not whether they're behind us. He looked around the chamber. The question is, what have they learned that we never needed to? Silence followed. It was a good silence. The silence of minds genuinely considering another perspective.